أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for joining us on today's episode of iTVusa's show, Balancing Deen and Dunya. My name is Dr. Suzy Ismail from Cornerstone, and today we have with us an incredible guest, someone that I've known for many, many years throughout college and through his friendship with my husband. We are very excited to have with us on today's episode Brother Tarek Sharaf. Brother Tarek has been working in the field of da'wah for much over a decade. He currently serves as the youth director at the Mass Youth Center of New Jersey, where the focus of the youth program at the Mass Youth Center of New Jersey is nurturing people and inspiring change. Brother Tarek focuses on the growth and the development of youth and really trying to encourage them to grow into leaders for the community at large. He currently is working on several different campaigns at the Mass Youth Center, including one that's going on today that has to do with providing book bags and other school supplies for vulnerable populations and underprivileged children. Tarek does not only work at the Mass Youth Center, but he also delves into his professional career by focusing on human behavior in the study of human resources and people analytics. So currently, he's also the senior manager of HR analytics in the data analytics field at a local company. He received his bachelor's in marketing from Pace University in New York and continued his education towards a master's in information systems at Stevens Institute of Technology. Brother Tarek grew up in Staten Island, and he currently lives in North Brunswick, New Jersey, with his 4 older sons. He enjoys playing lots of sports and he enjoys traveling, and we're so happy and honored to have him today on our show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suzy. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be invited and to be with you. So thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Tarek. It's nice to see you again. We know that you have been quite an influential community member, leading a lot of different youth programs, whether it was at Masjid al-Aman, at different community organizations, and now currently in your role at the Mass Youth Center. So, I've had the honor of knowing you, Tarek, through our college years. And as I mentioned, through your friendship with my husband, I think that's been going strong since childhood, alhamdulillah. And I've always seen you being really involved in service and giving back and being part of community initiatives. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about what inspires you. What is it that brought you into this field of service and that keeps you going as you continue to work with our youth?
Yes, so that's a great question, Suzy, and there's really I became a parent shortly after graduating college, and so in '99 I was blessed with my son Ibrahim, and as our children are growing, you want for them really to see the best. And I happen to have grown up in this country. I was born in this country and grew up in this country, and I wanted to really express to him Islam, and I wanted him to be proud of his Muslim identity, and that not only goes for my oldest son but my remaining sons as well. And ultimately, what I found is that I wanted him to be proud of his Muslim identity. I wanted him to learn Islam and be the best Muslim. And when he was I got started really in the work of dawah in 2010, 2011. So when he was about 11, 12 years old, you start to think about how do I surround him with the right friends? How do we surround them with the right environment? And really, my work into the field of Islamic dawah began with the idea of my children and how do I support them. And I really feel like my role as a father helps me become a better youth director, and vice versa as well. And I think it all works in conjunction with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he says, basically, how your the leader of a people becomes basically serves them. So ultimately, it's this idea of servant leadership that I try to express to to my sons. I try to model for them, as well as the youth group. But ultimately, Sayyidukum is ultimately that leader is the one who serves his people.
Yeah. Now, mashallah, I think that's, a beautiful journey into the work that you do, being inspired personally by your own children and recognizing the need of, not just being part of committees or sitting on boards, but actually being on the ground, like doing the work, where it's not just leading from a distance, but being very hands-on. So, Brother Tarek, in your work with the youth, in, I guess, over a decade of this da'wah work and being very involved with youth at masajid and community centers, what would you say you're currently seeing as maybe one of the top problems or difficulties that our youth tend to face?
So, in this day and age, Dr. Suzy, what we see is there's a lot of distractions, I'll call them, away from the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and away from the natural things that we want to occupy our hearts with. So I grew up in this country, as I mentioned before, and it used to be you used to go to school and parents maybe would be concerned about the influence from school. But when they came home, the children were relatively safe. Mm-hmm. This day and age, they are not safe at all. They could be in their rooms. They could be, on their phones. They could be on social media, and they could be in a completely different world from their parents, even if they're happen to be across the dinner table from them. They're occupied. They're so taken away with the likes and the comments and the shares, and I got to share this, and it's so encompassing. That it really distracts them from the true worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being God conscious and having that sense of taqwa that we're all basically created for.
Absolutely, yes, subhanAllah. I definitely think that there's a lot of truth in that as much as these devices are meant to connect people with one another, particularly for our youth, we're seeing greater disconnection, maybe from reality, disconnection from deen, disconnection from connecting with people in real life because of this delusion maybe that they're being connected through the virtual world. And I think that occupation, it doesn't only occupy the eyes, but it occupies the mind, it occupies the heart, it occupies the soul, essentially, in seeking out that journey of moving towards the akhirah, and at times you can get so consumed in the dunya with these devices. So what is your advice to parents, to children? This is a question I often get, what age should I give my child a cell phone? And one part of me wants to be like, never, but, I can't do that with my own children. So of course that doesn't work. But what advice do you give to parents and even to youth when it comes to these distractions that are online?
Well, the thing that we've been focusing on at the Mass Youth Center and has really been revolving around connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, connection with nature. And in the Quran, if you'll notice, in many instances, we're asked to أَفَلَا تَفَكُّرُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, look at the signs, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points us to the sun and the moon and the rising of the of all these celestial bodies. And really what I try to do is really point them out to these to these signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, for example, we began a program called Fajr by the Beach. And really, and you were one of our guest speakers at one of these events. But ultimately, what I like to do is have the Fajr prayer on the Sundays during the summer, and really they get to be in touch with nature and seeing the sun rise, and really the air at the beach really has a different it has a different sense. And it really connects them with nature, and it really connects them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other thing I would say that we try to do is we're covering the diseases of the heart. And this is really teaching you to identify emotions within yourself, and then to recognize them in others, and for you to be responsible, or for you to be in control of those emotions, and learning how to deal with them internally, so that you can express the best version of yourself to those around you.
So, mashallah, I think those are incredible initiatives. As you said, I was able to be part of the Fajr at the Beach earlier on in the summer, and just seeing the sense of community. I think there was over 100 people in attendance, so many young children, running up and dipping their toes into the ocean. And I think a lot of times as parents, sometimes when our kids are young, we're exhausted, we're tired. The idea of, getting up at 3 a.m. to drive an hour to the beach just seems overwhelming. But I know when I look at my kids, even these are the memories from their childhoods that they hold on to, that inshallah they'll hopefully continue and pass on to their future generations. But what would you say to a parent who maybe has, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, a tween, a teen, 18, 19, 20, where they offer their children these opportunities and experiences? Come to Fajr at the Beach, come to the Mass Youth Center. Let's participate in this activity. And they refuse. They stay in their rooms, they stay on their devices. Even if they do go to this event, you see them kind of closeted in the corner or not wanting to leave the car. What would you give in terms of advice for parents who are struggling with getting their children there?
So I think in a perfect world, we would raise our children being attached to the masjid, so that the friends that they have, the friends that you have, are both, from a parent level as well as the children level. There's relationships there, and there's a strong connection. So in that sense, I think that really gives you a strong head start to building that relationship with the children. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that you want to have ultimately because as the children get older, they're going to have stronger relationships maybe with people outside of the family. So hopefully there's a youth leader in the community. Hopefully there's somebody that can model good behavior towards them, because the impact of the parent at first is obviously heavy, but it starts to wane as they become, as they go into their teenage years, as they go into, their college years. And you really want to make a strong relationship with some friendship that you can have confidence in, and can have good faith and a good grounding in. But I would suggest also, in addition to that, Mass has 40 different centers across the U.S. In different cities. Reach out to your local chapters, reach out to your local masajid, and there should be some involvement from the Muslim community towards the youth. We know YM also has a strong presence from ICNA, from our brothers and sisters at ICNA, and there should be some connection with one of these Islamic groups, whether it's Mass or otherwise. But you want to have a strong youth leadership to model good behavior for those children.
Yeah. So absolutely, I think that's good advice. And sometimes we know the only way we can drag our children at any age to something is when we say, "Oh, your friend so and so is going to be there," And sometimes that's the draw. That when there is good companionship, good suhbah, that can really make a big difference in our children's lives. So one of the things that the Mass Youth Center does on a large scale, and you also do locally with the Mass Youth Center of New Jersey, are different trips, whether it's taking, the 11-hour drive to Chicago for the math conference with, a van load of or a bus load of youth, or taking a trip to Umrah, like the one that my own daughter joined last year. I know you're planning another Umrah trip, inshallah, I believe in December. We've got one with iTVusa actually being planned in November, inshallah. What do you think the impact of youth or family trips on youth is, such as taking a trip to Umrah, taking a trip to the convention, things of that sort?
So those are some of our big ticket events during the course of the year. So we recently had, for example, the Mass Annual Camp, where they went to upstate New York, and they had all sorts of bonding activities and camping activities that they took part in. And they really, we sent quite a few from our own center, and to be going on this road trip is a bonding that they have, and it's similar to when we went to Umrah, and as I told your own daughter, these 8 days, you'll go back to, when we go back to home, you will go back to your life, you'll work and go to college and graduate and get married and have kids and etc. But you will always have these 8 days. This will not be taken from you. And when you go to Umrah with somebody, that's a strong bond that cannot, that lasts forever. I myself, I went with, back in my college days, I went with Sheikh Walid Mus'ad, and it's something, they're a mere few days, but they last in your memory as if they were much longer, and they have this strong imprint on you. And I would just say that these road trips, whether it's to the Baltimore ICNA convention, or the 15 hours that I constantly hear about towards Chicago, the Umrah trip, there's bonds and relationships that are forged over these trips, because you're on a plane for the next 12 hours with somebody next to you. You might as well make the best use of it. And like I said, your own daughter, I think, didn't know too many of the group, but when we came back, there were strong relationships and strong bonds that were created over, again, a mere 7-8 days.
Yeah. And subhanAllah, I think, again, like in this age of disconnection, despite the availability of technological connections, we tend to lose sight sometimes of the importance of suhbah, of developing that companionship and those real human connections that carry us through the most difficult of times. And I think that's exactly what these trips that you describe do. They create a suhbah, particularly among the youth, where you do see young people becoming lifelong friends. And even, when we do our family trips or our couples retreats at Cornerstone, we tend to see the same thing. And it kind of aligns with the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that reminds us that we truly don't know a person unless we either travel with them, we live with them, or we do business or exchange money with them. And usually on these trips, all three are taking place, So for that short period of time, you're really getting to know someone. So for parents who are interested maybe in getting their children involved in mass youth programs, who maybe want to get involved themselves as volunteers, for our viewers who want to learn more, where would you direct them?
So we have our Mass local chapter, the Mass Central New Jersey chapter. So it's masscnj.org. So they can go there. There's actually a directory as well that comes from the Mass National website. And I would also mention that one of the things that's really emblematic and symbolic of Mass is that we typically will put youth in positions of leadership. So the community service that we do, for example, the Feed the Hungry, a lot of that is supervised from the youth themselves. So our recent summer camp that we had at the Mass Central New Jersey, that was supervised by our early college of our youth. The community helpers is led by our much of our youth. We also have a PACE, political activism and civic engagement group that is led by our college-aged youth. And really, if as parents and as youth leaders, to really engage them, you have to involve them from the very beginning, and you have to put them in positions of responsibility so that they can be involved and be active and be interested in the work at hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that involvement is key, making sure that they have a level of investment in the work that's being done and that's being carried out. So we've talked a little bit about, the different stages that our children go through, the young ages, wanting devices, maybe not wanting to be dragged to events, but making it enticing, involving friends, making sure they have that suhbah around them. Those teenage, young adult years, getting them involved in trips and programs like, the Umrah trip, the camp trips, the conferences, things that give them a level of independence, maybe where they're going with a group of youth and a youth director, away from their parents, but in an environment where the mentorship is clearly there and the connection can be built. Exactly. And now we kind of head into the next stage of, the tarbiyah of our children. And I know you and I have spoken frequently about this because of, different issues that our organizations tend to see, which is the stage of more intimate relationships for our children as they start to explore that young adulthood age, 21, 22, 23, 24, seeking out marriage, seeking out life partners. And I know this tends to be quite a bit of a struggle. We see it among our youth today. As my kids get older, as your kids get older, I think it's something that we're consistently seeing come up again and again, looking at, the issues of divorce, the issues of couples where marriages don't work out. What do you suggest, and what does the Mass Center do to try to facilitate pathways and avenues of that next stage of our children's life in terms of preparation for marriage facilitation, things of that sort?
So we have at the Mass Youth Center, we do have a young professionals team that focuses in on the next stage of your life. So you're not part of the quote unquote youth group anymore, although technically they probably are. But there's the young professionals where they start to focus in on building relationships with others in your peer group, building relationships and networking with others around your age group. So that really is starting to take off in Mass Central New Jersey. If you remember, Mass Central New Jersey is only a little over a year into existence. So we bought this used to be a Verizon building. We've bought this new youth center, where the first youth center, I think, that's devoted specifically to the youth in New Jersey. And we're building up these programs from the ground up. So part of that is PACE, part of that is our young professionals group, so that, when it comes time for marriage, wait, I do know somebody and I have come across somebody that I am aware of. Otherwise, they might not come across them for other than for that relationship. So we're trying to concentrate on that segment and build out those relationships and those events. We recently had a game nights for the young professionals, and again, it's something that we want to concentrate on. The other thing I would say, I think we're concentrating on with all of these age groups is mental health and emotional wellness, right? Things may you may be going through a difficult time. You may not be finding that right marriage partner right away. And some of these things have an emotional impact on our well-being. So we are trying to address those by partnerships with Cornerstone and other qualified professionals as well in that field. But really the concentration that I think going forward we'll need is that emotional wellness, that building emotional and mental toughness to address whatever adversity may come our way.
I'm glad you bring that up because, that's definitely an area that we concentrate on and that we find to be very important. I just want to shift gears in the last couple of minutes that we have together and step away from your role at MAS to take a look at so many of the other things that you're involved in. I know that you are involved in an organization called Direct Compass that does also work on the marriage side of things. As we mentioned, you're a father of 4 young adult boys, and I know that keeps you very busy. You also work professionally in the field of data analytics. How do you balance it all? How do you manage to, be the best version of yourself with your children, the best version of yourself in the professional space, and while doing all of this service-oriented work for the community?
Well, I appreciate your kind words, Dr. Suzy. I really, again, I think the embodiment is the embodiment of the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where the hadith was, again, serving your community is actually being a leader towards that community. And, ultimately, another of his hadith, alayhi salatu wasalam, was, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. And if you become satisfied with where you are, I think you become stale. And that's something that I think we try to express to our youth is that, life is constantly evolving. How are you going? If you're staying the same, you're actually falling back. And it's really an exciting time to be working in Islamic Dawah. It's an exciting time to be in HR analytics because there's artificial intelligence. There's the new skills that are entering the workforce. There's 5 generations working together at the same time for the first time in history. And, so there's in about 2 years' time, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. And there's others like myself in Generation X who are called the sandwich generation. Are we going to go? We have to take care of our parents, and we have the millennials nipping at our heels too. So it's all fascinating to me because it's all fascinating because I enjoy, again, the study of human behavior. And it's something that hits home to me. And the other thing I would suggest just as a tip is it helps me manage all these different areas when I'm actually getting up early in the morning, and there's actually barakah in those early morning hours, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, and really getting head start on all these different things. So it's really advantageous I find it for myself, it's advantageous to take advantage of those early morning hours and get a head start on things. And in terms of Direct Compass, I just find that we, the local masajid, I think, are not really covering this area too well. And I think for some of our youth, it's difficult to find that right partner. It's not something that I personally find or I have heard that you can access or through an app. I don't think you can do that with an app. And I think we're trying to do our best to make those connections between people so that they can rest assured and find and make better choices when it comes to their partners.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brother Tariq, for providing us with that overview. For those of our viewers who are just joining us, we are about to come to the end of our episode. We've had the honor and privilege today of getting to meet and getting to know a little bit more about Brother Tarek Sharaf, who has been, for over a decade working in the field of Islamic da'wah, particularly with our youth. He's currently serving as the youth director at the Mass Central Jersey Center in North Brunswick. And he spoke to us a little bit about some of his other initiatives as well, and his thoughts on the difficulties that our youth face and how we as parents, we as community members can be the role models that our parents need in really keeping in mind, service-oriented leadership and leading others through the acts of service. So Jazakallah khair, Brother Tariq, for joining us. For all of our viewers who are interested in learning more on any of the mass youth initiatives, the trips that we spoke about, the Umrah, the camps, so many of the great and exciting things that are coming out of the Mass Central Jersey office for our youth and our families, please be sure to visit their website and visit their social media. You can also find Brother Tarek Sharaf online, and I'm sure he'd be willing to answer any questions that you have. And we hope to see you at our next episode of Balancing Deen and Dunya, where we continue to meet and get to know inspirational community leaders and figures who are doing amazing work within our communities. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.